As it turns out, there's a pretty cool way I can save some pins with the buttons by using something called a keyboard matrix. I could have each switch directly connected to a pin on the controller on one side and 5 volts on the other. When the switch isn't being pressed, the circuit is broken and the controller's pin reads 0 volts. If I press the switch, I'll close the circuit and now the controller will see 5 volts on that pin, which tells it that the switch has been pressed. Now let's rearrange the circuit. So instead of connecting all the switches to 5 volts and an Arduino pin, I'll instead have one pin connected to each row of switches, and one pin connected to each column of switches. Now I'm only using 6 pins, as opposed to the 9 I was using before. But this raises the question, how does the controller know what button is being pressed? There's no voltage at all in the system, so even if a button is pressed, the controller still won't see any voltage. Well, you see, that's actually what makes this work with fewer pins. The controller itself can provide the voltage. When I want to read the state of the buttons, the controller will send a voltage down each column, one at a time. If none of the buttons in the column are pressed, nothing will happen. But, if one of them is pressed, the controller will see a voltage on the corresponding row pin. Since we know both the column and the row, we can uniquely identify the button that was pressed. Now this does have one big downside, and that's what happens if multiple buttons are pressed at once. If each button has its own pin, it doesn't matter how many of them are pressed simultaneously, we'll still know exactly which buttons are being pressed. Now watch what happens if I press 3 buttons at the same time. The first column is fine. We correctly see that 2 buttons in it are pressed. But hold on, the next column also thinks that 2 buttons are pressed, even though we're only pressing 1 button in that column. So why is this happening? The voltage for button 2 is flowing back through the other buttons, making it look like button 5 is pressed, when it's not. And thankfully there's a pretty easy solution to all of this. You just need to put a diode on each button. This diode will prevent the current from flowing backwards through our buttons. Now the controller can accurately tell which button is being pressed, no matter how many buttons I'm pressing at once.